very good evening. You're watching youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep live. The time is just coming up to 2000 hours GMT. Hello everybody, good evening, how are you doing? And a very warm welcome to another edition, or the second edition of season 3 of 8 Till Late with me, Tom, right here live on youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep. Now, you're going to have to excuse me, there's been a bit of a rush to get ready and live for today's show. We basically had a power outage about half an hour ago. And I mean a proper blackout, and it just knocked everything out. So I was literally had all the systems, everything kind of like ready to go, and it all just went black. And I mean, it was just dark. Everything had gone. It knocked our Wi-Fi out, all the streaming systems, all the computers, the screens, everything was knocked offline. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, what are we going to do? Luckily, we managed to get back up and running. However, I don't know what the problem is, if it's local to us or if it's something further afield. What I will say is if I suddenly crash off air tonight, or the stream just stops for whatever random reason, you'll know what's happened. We'll try and get back online if it does happen. If we can't, then that'll be it for tonight. So my apologies in advance if this does happen. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, I've been a little bit flustered in getting ready for tonight's live stream. Anyway, how are you doing? Thanks so much for your company, and once again, welcome to 8 Till Late here on youtube.com/Wi-Fi Sheep. We should also say a huge welcome and hello to our many Patreon members and YouTube channel backers. Here they all are, and we have a brand new backer, Paulio B, who is a regular subscriber and has chatted many a time here on 8 Till Late in the past. And I actually met Paul in person at the recent Cambridge Retro Computer Festival, and he has now kindly decided to join the Patreon scheme, and so there he is as the new backer. And we also say a warm welcome return to George F. Rosansky, who has returned. George has been a regular backer again on Patreon. Disappeared last month, but I'm really pleased to say has come back. So welcome back, George, and thank you both, George and Paul, for joining me on Patreon and supporting what I do here on Wi-Fi Sheep. If you want to be like them and all the others there listed, you can do so by joining on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Wi-Fi Sheep. Alternatively, and you know the score by now, you can stay right here on YouTube by joining the YouTube membership scheme. Tiers are on screen now. They start at 99p all the way up to £2.99. That's in British pound sterling. That'll be converted into your local currency, or if it can't, you'll see it probably in default as US dollars. Details are, you can find the details by just clicking the join button, which is underneath the video you are watching right now. Okay, so what's been happening this week? By the way, if anyone wants to chime in on the chat, you're more than welcome to. Just be interested to know what you've been up to this week. I actually finished work, so I finished Thursday. Could have gone in Friday, but I was told I wasn't needed, so I actually finished on Thursday, which, yeah, was good. Kind of pleased to be finished. I think I mentioned last week that I started a new contract, same employer, same job. I started a brand new contract. So I go back to work on January the 6th. So I've got a good 2-3 weeks off over Christmas. I'll be honest with you, I've been feeling a bit tired today. I don't know if it's just the weather, but I've been feeling a little bit tired. And I thought, oh, I've got to do the live stream. And it's the setup for the live stream. And then we have the power cut, and I'm like, oh my God, no, not tonight, not tonight. But we're here now, and I'm feeling all right. But I think we may have to go for a tea break very, very shortly because I've not had time to get my water and my cup of tea or anything. But yeah, so basic work. I won't go on too much about work stuff, but basically at work, I've been trying to sort out a new module that we're going to be. Well, I say new module. It's the second year it's going to run. It ran last year for the first time. A new module for our first year students called EMP, which is Electronics, Microcontrollers and Programming. And basically it's an introductory level for the students, because bear in mind a number of these students will have never have done this. It's wrong to assume that students have the skills or abilities when they come to us, and the colleges don't teach anything these days. You cannot assume anything. And also, because of what we do where I work at university, we don't have a computer science department. So what I do in engineering is the nearest thing, but it's not the traditional kind of electronics or computer programming kind of gateways or pathways that sort of traditional students would do at a more standardized inner city university. So we kind of have to start from scratch, and that's what EMP is designed for. And what I've been working on, I'll show you it here, is I've actually been designing the project board for this year, which is this. So basically it's a PIC. It's branded as Genie. It's a closed source IDE architecture that we use, but basically it's a PIC chip, E28. And the students are going to have to design let's call it a PCB. Technically it's a PCB, but it's actually a milled, I'll show you this. It's a brass plated milled printed circuit board done for a machine router. So they actually design in, again, a closed source architecture space called Circuit Wizard, which is part of the Genie, not to be confused with Genie IDE, which is it has the same name. It's the free open source IDE that you're probably aware of. It comes standard with Raspberry Pi. But no, Genie, it's slightly different spelling as well. Basically, Circuit Wizard allows you to kind of you do like a flow code. So I'll tell you what you do. What you do is you draw all in the program. You draw a schematics. This is the schematic I've done. Basically, the project will be a simple traffic lights. So we're starting quite simple, bearing in mind we're dealing with students here that haven't necessarily ever handled an electrical component or soldered anything together before. So we have to start somewhere. So you have the microcontroller. You've got 3 LEDs, red, green, blue for the traffic lights. You've got a programming socket, which is like an audio 3.5mm audio jack type socket, which it uses. Push button, and we have a voltage regulator and a power source, which we said is a battery, but it doesn't have to be a battery. Probably be a bench supply in all honesty. And then obviously we've got 2 pull-up, 1K pull-up resistors, and then we've got the 1K. I put 1Ks in just because I've generally, what I design, everything is 1K. If it needs it or not, it's always 1K. But you've got 1K on each of the grounds for the LEDs. So once you've done that, you can, in a sort of pictorial form, design your board, and you can actually simulate it live in the program. From that, and this is the bit I do as a technician, I then make this board here. So the components would be facing the other way. The board is flipped, if you like. So the text appears backwards if it was on here. You can actually see how it's flipped. And this one I've had to then go and manually drill all the holes. So it's different from the sort of the PCBs, the Chinese-made PCBs that we've done regularly here on the channels. This is kind of very much, I say homemade, but made actually in the university's workshops and fabrication facilities. So that's what we're going to be working with. So the students actually will have until May, which is one of the last. This will be one of the last hand-ins they do for their academic year. They kind of finish by May. And I'll just show you this. This is actually how you program it. So you literally do. It's a drag and drop system. Again, all within this Circuit Wizard, Genie Circuit Wizard software. So you kind of make like a flowchart type thing. So it's not line by line programming. I think you can write in BASIC in it, but they much prefer, apparently, as part of what we're going to do, it's just sort of click and drag, basically to work out logic. And you see here how I've set up basically a do nothing loop. So when the light is held in either green or red, depending on what we're doing, it sort of goes down to green or red, holds at that, and then it'll just do a loop until it's told to either switch back to green or switch back to red. You'll notice it has a series of high and low status pulls. That's because the light doesn't just go green or red, it has to do the UK national highway regulation traffic lights. So it's the sequence is it goes red, yellow, green, and then back the other way it goes green, yellow, and then red. So that's what this does. So basically I wanted to get this in order because we're going to start the module, and I think I'm going to be teaching some of this as well, which I'm actually very much looking forward to, and I just wanted to get that up and running. So I kind of had a sense of confidence before I go back in the new year, and I'm not going to sit over Christmas and worry myself about it, if you know what I mean. So that's that. So I'll let you know how that goes on, but I think we'll do all right this year, hopefully. I need like a filing cabinet to sort of just shove bits of paper, because when I'm doing these, hang on a minute, they are on the floor. When I'm doing these live streams, it's always, you know, I'm trying to like stack stuff in different places, and I can't remember where I put anything. And well, you know by now, if you're a regular to watching 8 till 8 or my other live streams, you'll pretty much know what it's like when I'm kind of when I've got multiple things to show you or projects going on. Speaking of which, before I forget, just want to bring your attention to this. If you follow me on any of the many social medias, then you've probably already seen this. This is the live stream, or the proposed live stream schedule for Wi-Fi Sheep on YouTube over the Xmas and New Year's period. So tonight it's the 21st December, 8 till 8. That's what is now running, and we are currently 11 minutes in. On December the 24th, that's Christmas Eve, I will intend to be live for a special edition of Xmas Eve or Christmas Eve live, and that'll be from 22:30 GMT. Then I will hopefully see you again on the 31st of December for our traditional Wi-Fi Sheep New Year's Eve live. And if you want to join me to count in the new year here, UK time, GMT 0, then I will be live right here at 22:30 hours. That's 10:30 in the evening, UK time, on the 31st December. And then the first live stream of the new year will be the 11th of January. That's back on a Saturday again, and back to our normal 2000 hours, 8 o'clock time for the first New Year edition of 8 till late. These times are subject to availability and subject to change. So do keep across Wi-Fi Sheep social media. But as it stands, that is the intention for this Christmas and New Year period. So I do hope you'll be able to join me for some of that. Okay, so few things. What have I sort of been working on? Well, because I've been at work and I've just shown you what I've been doing at work, not had an awful lot of time to do anything else, but I have been working on a few things. So let me just show you first thing. So apologies for those of you that have already seen this, but this is a Pico VGA demo board from Pyromi, again not sponsored. And inside, these actually come assembled. Inside you get this little dev board, and I'm just going to try and take the right. So yeah, okay, so you get this dev board, and you then take your Raspberry Pi. This is a original Pico 1, which I've soldered the header on myself, and you basically, it's a VGA board, so it has a VGA monitor slot on side, USB power, it has DAC and PWM, pulse width modulation, a run or reset button, 3 ABC input buttons, and it does actually have an SD card capability. Try and stick this back in now. And basically I bought this because I wanted to do a couple of clumsy. Right, I wanted to do a couple of experiments, and one of them was to look at the Pico term, which is basically a RS-232 compatible terminal for use with retro computer systems, or in our case, Tiny Basic Computers Project Rios. Many people had been saying to me, because they weren't happy about my use of Raspberry Pi Zero and Pi GFX that I use as the standard for my Project Rio systems. And those who have followed that project and the builds will know all about that. They said, oh, why are you using that when you could just be using a microcontroller solution? So I've experimented with it. So this board actually has Pico terminal installed. It's flashed onto it already, and we should be able to hook up using an adapter. Now this is all a bit mad, but basically I have a powered VGA to HDMI adapter, which we're going to plug in. Make sure we've got the adapter the right way around. Okay, there we go. That's then going to the capture card. Out of the capture card, it's going back into VGA to a VGA display that I've got. So we're converting it from VGA to HDMI and then back to VGA again. I'm also aware that we are getting some frame drop. There we are, frame droppage as well. So as I've said, if you're just joining us, we've been having some power problems this evening, and I'm fully expecting we could just crash off the air at any time. But we'll try best to carry on. So right. So that's powered. The Pico itself doesn't actually take power from there. It actually takes power from over here. Now, if this works, if I now power up, so I'm just running off a iPhone charger. Okay. Nothing yet. What haven't I done? Something isn't plugged. Hang on. Plug the other end in. That's always helpful. Right. Okay, that's now plugged in. Right. There we go. And let's see if we're getting a video signal. We are getting a video signal. So that is the default boot screen. By the way, those wavy lines that you're seeing in the image, I'm seeing that as well. There is some interference. Bearing in mind, I'm being a bit mad in converting this down or from VGA to HDMI and then back to VGA again. So I think there's a little bit of wobble or something not quite earthed properly. But there we go. So this is a bit like Pi GFX actually. It's all designed for the RC 2014 Z80 kit computer system, which you could argue is technically a rival to what I'm doing with Project Rio and Tiny Basic Computers. That, and people love to kind of put me in little boxes and categorize me as this, that, or the other. I argue that I'm not really a rival, because both these are, you know, RC 2014 is a commercial product. It's on sale. You can buy it. You can't buy my stuff because I don't sell anything. So you have to scrabble the parts around, and you can make a financial donation, but you can just scrabble around and get the parts yourself. So I'm not selling a product. So am I a rival? I don't think I am. But RC 2014 is what basically Pico terminal is written for. So here it is in default configuration. That works quite well. That's as far as I've got at the moment, admittedly, because I don't have anything to drive it. You'll notice, see, it says so it says Pico term, and then it says at the bottom line there, 115200. That's the baud rate. I don't have anything set up that could run, or do I? No, I don't, and I'll tell you why I don't. So I don't have anything to actually try it out with as yet. Two things. We just cut back to camera. So, two things. First of all, this board actually needs some modification. I'm just going to Just bear with me while I adjust the camera. Again, this is a big no for doing live, but just bear with me. So these aren't autofocus cameras, they're manual focus, which is good because it means that once you've locked them, they don't move out of focus. But it does mean that you have to manually focus them. But I do like these little webcams I use. Highly recommend them, actually. Not very expensive either. They give a very nice picture. So, right. Okay, so on the demo board, and I feel like I need a pointy stick here. Someone isn't going to short out. I need like a plastic pointy stick. Hang on. Oh, do you know what? This pen will have to do. It's not quite right, but it'll do. Right. Okay. So on the, and again, this is the Pyromi Pico VGA dev board. By the way, they do one for HDMI now, and I don't know how well that works because this is very much designed to work with VGA, so don't get the two confused. But on this particular board, there's a series of pins broken out down here. So there's GP21, GP20, and an SDD2 and SDD1. Now basically these are, there's a little solder, well, I say solder bridge. In the silk screen, there's a little bridge here. So they're actually wired between each other. Basically these pins form part of the SD card circuit in normal operation. However, there also happen to be the UART RS232 serial pins. Basically, so much of the logic on this is tied up in generating the VGA signal that there is very little left to actually drive anything else. Hence why UART pins double up as SD card pins. So what you can do is, and I don't know if we do this tonight. We might do this tonight, but I'll have to go away and for 5 minutes and set up. But what you do is you actually take a knife or an instrument and you actually just cut the copper between these two here, and you actually break the connection. And then you actually solder in a bit of a pin header just into this space, and you can actually use jumpers to reconnect if you're using the SD card, or in our case, that thing should give us a straight TX and RX RS232 UART that we would be able to connect into something as long as we're running on 3.3 volt TTL logic. So we couldn't, for example, put a straight Arduino and drive straight into this because it would blow the Pico up. However, if we went for a voltage regulator, or if we built a voltage divider circuit, then as long as we're dropped down to 3.3, that works reasonably well. So I'm just wondering if we might do that tonight. But so far, I've been relatively, I don't know, I'm still testing this. I'm not 100% convinced of it, in all honesty. I mean, it works, and for some of our projects, such as the boards that Gertmon, who I'll say hello, he's in the chat. Gertmon, sorry, I keep calling you Gertmon. Gertmon, apologies. Or Gartmon. Do you know what? I give up with usernames. Everyone have generic usernames. Everyone is now called Fred. There we are. So, Gartmon, apologies. I call you everything under the sun. Sent me the boards for the hang on, Kim Wanuno we showed last week. So this would be perfect for that, I think, possibly, or we could just run it as we normally do through the Raspberry Pi GFX terminals. So yeah, so I'm sort of trialing with it. I'm just going to answer a couple of questions. So Gartward is like Davy. Yes, I should just call you Davy, shouldn't I? Yeah, that would be much better. I will say hello to Martin, who's joined us. And we say hello to Brian. Good evening to you both. Martin's asking me, what are the webcams we use? Right, this messes up my setup. But, and again, look, wires and everything. Very carefully, if I just bring this one down. Here we are. So these SMT 2 Key Chinese box cameras, they are tiny, but but they are really, really good. And I run two of these identical. So there's the one you're looking through now, and there's this one, HD digital camera. It's a USB 2 camera feed. You can get a security B and C version, but that's not compatible for what we're running. So I run with a USB one. It's just a straight USB plug into the PC, and it picks up the feed fine. I really, really like these cameras. They're about £30 thereabouts. They're not expensive, and you get the lenses. And I think we've done this before, where you can actually change the lenses, and there you can see how it has zoom, focus, and it has manual iris as well. So this is what we've been using, and they are tiny little desk cameras, but they are superb. And you know, you're getting a good 30 to 60 frames a second through them, and the quality, I mean, it's better than some of my sort of like Sony camcorders and other sort of cameras that we use here on the channel. That's why these two cameras, this one and the one which you're looking through at the moment, basically do most of the video work when you see me in frame or you see me working on the desk here, just because they are absolutely superb. So I highly recommend these, actually. And I've just got a little generic stand tripod. Unfortunately, so that's camera one, which I'm now, yeah. So you can see it's, this is, if you're going to feel seasick now, but you have to manually focus them. So this was the camera that I was using for the shot of me. Oh no, we won't do that. That's terrible. But I have been able to use them when I've needed to show something on either the bench supply or the old school oscilloscope. Really, really good for just sort of putting down like that and showing something, you know, close-up detail of something. That, by the way, that's what I'm seeing. So that's the just generic charity shop 4:3 aspect ratio LCD VGA monitor. And then I'll talk about the rig. So it's kind of ridiculous. So you've got this converter, which is then running through to, that's the capture card. And I've just realised we've just lost the, well, there we are. Right, we're back. That's the capture card. You see everything through. And it's pronounced Davy. Oh, do you know, I give up. It's Davy. I'm near Welsh. I'm very near the Welsh border. Everything's Davy. Right, where was I? Anyway, stop ruining my flow. Right. So we're then going through back out as HDMI. And then in this case, because I'm using this old school monitor, we're back into another VGA connector to then connect through. So it's kind of a slightly stupid way of doing it, but it works. But that's why we are getting, as I said, you can probably see that wavy line that you're seeing. I'm seeing it as well. So it's something actually on the screen. We go back to the live capture, you can see that wave. So that's something I'm seeing as well. But yeah, so really do, wrong camera, really do recommend these cameras, actually. They are very good. I think there's very similar ones. They all came off Press, I think is where I got them from. And I was kind of, well, so I needed something just that sat permanently on the desk that wasn't a camcorder. It's not, I don't know if you're going to see this, I haven't really got the light, unfortunately, but behind me, again, you have to excuse the mess. Let's try and just keep that in focus. So this is one of the higher spec Panasonic sort of studio camcorders. It's a full HD camcorder, which has had a little bit of use on the channel. This is kind of set up ready as camera free, so it can be plugged in and live stream. I have done a bit of work with this camera. Originally, I planned to have two of these on. They're actually on, again, sorry about the mess, but they're on rolling caster wheel tripods. So they are actually set up as studio cameras. If you remember that robot challenge video I did from work, from the university, it's on Wi-Fi Sheep Channel 2. That was all shot with this particular camera. And this is very similar to the type of camera that I trained on at university, when I was at university doing my own degree. So it's all got cables on it at the minute, but this is the kind of 4-end HD studio cameras that eventually I was sort of thinking would switch over to using more. But for tight desk shots, especially in this space, it looks good. It's over there, and if it's needed. So sometimes when I need a shot sort of back on the desk that way, so I haven't got the flex to do this really, but when I've sort of got shots that need to be sort of like that, and this camera needs to be over there on its perch, that's where this one is actually quite good and can be plumbed into the system. Unfortunately, at the moment, it means the capture card has to come out because it uses the same capture card technology to output HDMI native straight in. So it's captured as if it was the same as what we're doing down here. So I can either have 3 video cameras or 2 cameras and a computer or device. So that's that. Let me just, because everyone's probably feeling really seasick after watching me do that. Let's just pop that back. That's the thing. So once I've messed around with the camera, you can see it's out of focus now. Because I said they're not autofocus, but there we go. They're relatively easy to put back into focus. And it doesn't do that silly thing where it like tries to autofocus. You've probably seen it on YouTube videos where people can't get stuff in focus. And I've had that with my smaller video camera. This is a Sony Handycam that I've used quite a lot on the channel as well. Not using that as much actually anymore. Now I've got the professional gear and obviously these 2 very brilliant little web box cameras. It's just easier to shoot using those. So anyway, right, that was that. Back to what we were talking about. We've gone off on a tangent, but I hope that answers the question, by the way. I also don't understand why I don't see my YouTube live panel, which is annoying. Yeah. For those of you that are just joining us, yeah, we had a bit of a power outage, unfortunately, just before I came on air, and it knocked all the systems, including the router, offline. And I was a bit like, right, that's interesting. That's going to be a problem. So basically, there's a few things that aren't working properly still, but we'll model through. If I crash off air, you know what's happened. Anyway, right, back to what we're talking about. So this is Pico. I keep wanting to call it Pico. Anyway, Pico demo board. And it is running the RC 2014. Well, it's not the RC 2014 board for that particular kit. It does run it fine because that board is based on the reference design that this board is as well. Hence it works. Hence why I want to experiment with seeing if this is going to work as a terminal. Now, one thing the Pico can actually do that the others can't do is it's powerful enough to drive an actual USB protocol, which is useful, and is also why this particular port, which you normally use for powering, is now free because we're powering from down here. So I ran out. I say ran out. Didn't run out anywhere. I ordered it online. I actually ordered these converters to go from micro USB to full-size female USB A. If you plug one of these in like that, now at the moment you see it's flashing, so that means they can't detect a USB keyboard. If we take just a generic USB keyboard, you've seen me, these are these really cheap things that I bought some years ago, and they've actually been really quite good. So if we now plug USB keyboard in, now we may have to do a power down and a reset, so let's just do a power down off the mains, power back up, still flashing. It's sometimes it's meant to just do a soft reset. Hopefully you can see the keyboard. It's meant to, if it's meant to stop flashing, it did stop flashing earlier. Apparently it's meant to stop flashing if it sees the keyboard, but we can't test it because we have no echo or repeatability. So because we're not plugged into anything, it doesn't matter what I type, it wouldn't show up. So that's an experiment to do, but as I said, we have to do a slight modification to the board here, which we could do, but there's a couple of things I want to show tonight, so I might save that for next, well, I say next time, And by the way, for those of you that have just joined us a little bit late and didn't see social media earlier on, those are times for the up and coming live streams here on Wi-Fi Sheep. So obviously the 21st December is tonight. So we're live doing this. The next one I'll be with you is on the 24th of December from 22:30 GMT for Xmas Eve Live. Then back on the 31st of December at 22:30 again for New Year's Eve Live, a bit of a tradition here on the channel. And then we'll be back to the first normal 8 till 8 of 2025. I'll be on the 11th of January from 2000 hours GMT. And as I said before, all times subject to change in availability and power outages. But that's roughly the plan. So, yeah, we might come back to that. But that's just one thing I've been playing with this evening. And let's just power that down. Because while I've got this VGA setup done, I'm just going to take this away a minute. Also been playing with a couple of other things. So again, not sponsored, bought these myself. Olimex. I have shown this board before. This is the ESP32 FabGL board from Olimex, and it basically allows, they're very good, we have touched on this before, the very good FabGL library for the ESP32, the VGA library that allows emulation of computing systems, gaming systems, etc. And I bought this board, which is an expanded version of the TT Goes, which are these that we have looked at before. It's meant to be exactly the same architecture, and it's meant to be the same wiring diagram, and again, reference design. However, unlike these that I can get working fine, I cannot for the life of me get the SD card working on this, and it's been extremely annoying because it limits what you can do. I have, however, flashed something brand new to this, so there's no SD card in at the moment. Again, we'll plug in back into VGA. These are all VGA out, and I'm going to need an adapter. So I've got keyboard. Now this unfortunately is a little bit awkward because the adapters hits the VGA, so just have to try and carefully if I get that in. So this, there we go, so it's PS2 sockets, so sort of, there we go, it's not ideal. That's in. And then we need a PS2 mouse. I've got this. It's a laser or optical mouse, but it's a PS2 Acer mouse. So we'll just plug that in. So mouse and keyboard go in. Power is off USB-C. So I've got a USB-C to USB-A. So we'll just plug that in. And we'll put that into our iPhone charger. I'm going to take the adapter off. Now, this cheap keyboard, despite being cheap, runs both USB and has the PS2 protocol. So despite the fact it's a USB end, if I stick that into this adapter, it should actually work as a PS2 keyboard fine. These adapters, I've said this many times before, but these adapters don't have any logic in them to convert signals. They're literally just a through converter from pin to pin. So you actually have to have the protocols on board your keyboard. Which keyboards do and don't, I can't tell you nowadays, and it's getting less and less reliable that you can actually get a USB keyboard that actually has PS2. So as a rule of thumb, if you need a PS2 keyboard, buy a PS2 keyboard. Don't rely on having a generic USB one that can drive PS2, because things have moved on in the past decade. Anyway, right, so that's all now powered up. So let's see if we go over to capture. Let's power back up. Let's see if this works. It does work. There we go. I've actually loaded one of the FabGL libraries into this. I did this before we came on air. And, well, that's probably what caused the power cut. But this is, believe it or not, is a full Commodore VIC-20 emulator. It's actually very, very good. This is one of the newer versions of it, and it has a number of open source or freeware available games that come with it. So these are loaded as part of the library. So, for example, it's Arkanoido, so it's there. And you see how it sets up, so you can actually run sessions, you can expand the memory, you can set up the keyboard. So I'm on a UK British keyboard, but you've got all the different types of main types of keyboard, and you can set up joystick. I got a mouse joystick. Let's go back to Arkanoid. If I just double click, it will load. There we go. And you might just be able to hear that sound. It's very, very quiet. It has sound on the board for a buzzer. In fact, if I take the little sticker off, you might be able to hear that a bit more better. And it actually plays really, really well. So this is emulating the 6502. And you can run, if you can get the SD card working, which I can't on this board, it's really, really annoying. But if you could actually load VIC-20 software and run it, and it's all off a microcontroller. Damn it. We could actually route the sound if we wanted to through the headphone socket, so we don't have to use the buzzer. What I actually wanted to use this board for was I wanted to use the PC emulators, the x86 PC emulators, but without the SD card running, it's just not possible to load those. So I've been trying to get the SD card running on this, and it's truthfully been a bit problematic. But I do intend to do a full video on this at some point, but it's just annoying when you can't get stuff working. If you are an avid player of this must be extremely frustrating watching me play it. But if you hit F12 and go straight back to the menu screen, so it has a full GUI interface. You can use the onboard Wi-Fi that comes as part of the ESP32 chipset, so you can actually tap into your own Wi-Fi, and then you could actually download and run VIC-20 software directly from the internet, which is, I think, really, really cool. Should we do one more? Let's do Frogger. Right. I'm playing this with a mouse, so it's the audio is a little grating, I think you'll agree. Do you know what? I might just put the sticker back on that. There we go. Bit quieter. I cannot play this with a mouse, it's too sensitive. So yeah, this is a more modern port of Frogger. If I say more modern, from 2007 from the looks of it. So Yeah, they're all. I think they're legitimate freeware programs. There is Omega Fury. But this was quite impressive for a system that doesn't have a sprite engine. I want to play. Come on. I want to play. I want to play. Playing. Yeah. Nice credits, but I want to play. Damn it. Never mind. Right, okay. You get the gist. So, yeah, that's the one board. And now a number of... I'm trying to think I've actually got the IDE open in a minute. I'll show you how this works quickly if you want to know. Let's just have a think about this. My frame rate drops off the floor. It's because I'm trying to do too much on this PC at once. But if we now go to... let's do that. There we go. So I'll see if it actually loads in. So this is the Arduino IDE. And because it's Java based, it's also a bit slow. This is the latest version. So basically you have to download, and I appreciate you're not going to be able to see the menus. Just to take my word for it. So basically if you've got in the libraries, if you've got ESP32 and the FabGL library installed, then you'd go File, no you wouldn't, you would go, yes you would, File, Examples, and then you'd scroll down to FabGL, VGA, and then if I hit VIC20, and because it's being a bit of a pain, we need to change to second library. It says, there we go. So basically you get effectively raw C code for this is the emulator, and here are all the programs included when you compile it. This is basically the emulator that calls in the FabGL library. And so all I did was select the ESP32 board, select my COM port, and I compiled and uploaded. And yeah, that's how relatively easy it was. Now, annoyingly, I cannot get the SD cards to work. And I did actually buy, thinking it might be my SD cards, I did buy yesterday, and they actually came today through Amazon. I bought some new heavy duty 8 gig SD cards. Weren't terribly expensive. And I put this into PC and I used SD card. Well, I used SD card formatting tools, which are the official ones, and I reflashed it, fresh card, back to FAT32. Put it in this device, and it still won't see it. So I've never been able to get the SD card to work with this at all. But these cards work fine on the TTL Go devices. So there's something not right with this board, which limits what we can do with it. Because I wanted to run PC, IBM PC emulation, things like Windows and Gem. I wanted to run on this board because it'd be really good for that. But I can't, because I can't load anything off SD card, which is extremely frustrating. If anyone actually has any ideas about this for the ESP32 SBC FabGL from Olimex. Be interested to know. I have messed around with the source code. I have had a look at literally probing to see if it's all connected. It's a bit difficult. Obviously, it's all tiny service mount components, so it's a bit awkward to do. Can't honestly figure out what it is, and no one else seems to be having this problem. So I have to come to the conclusion that I may have a defective unit, which is annoying to say the least. And it's too late now to send it back, because I've had it over a year. That's the problem, is I buy things and then I don't actually have time to to go back and check them to see if they work. Assuming that this board doesn't work properly. But if I could just get that damn SD card to work, it would be great. But it would be an extremely, I think, frustrating and boring night if it was me just trying to get that card to work. Unless anyone has any ideas. If you're watching, by the way, and you're watching this on repeat, and you do have any experience or ideas for this, then please feel free to drop into the comments to the video. Right, so we're just coming up to 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. I think I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, a glass of water, cup of tea, something like that. So I'll be about 5 minutes tops. When we come back, I've got something else to show you, again from Olimex, in a similar vein to this. This one I think could probably chew up another hour quite easily. So let's go for a tea break, and we'll be right back in about 5 minutes' time. Okay, good evening. I'm back. It's been a while since we've done a tea break live on air, but I hope you're still back as well. I have no way of seeing the viewer figures at the minute, so I'm not getting anything, unfortunately, from YouTube. So I'm assuming everyone's still there, roughly. Yeah. Oh, before we go on, I'll just show you something else I didn't have time to get to before we hit 8 o'clock. So if we just go back to turn this off, just turn this off for a minute. I'll show you this very quick. Right. So I spent a bit of time today with the chickens, who are doing okay. And I just want to show you this. So this is actually a rubber egg. And we use these eggs, basically put them in the nest box sometimes. And if the chickens see there's an egg in there, they'll want to lay their egg next to it, and it kind of stops them laying in stupid places. But it is a rubber egg. But just to illustrate, that's an egg. A relatively small egg, actually, but that is an egg. Okay? Today, in the nest box, I found this. What is that? One of my chickens, one of my hens, has produced this, which I can tell you is actually very, very heavy. Yeah, this is the kind of egg oddities that you never see in the supermarkets, because they're always filtered out for the best or the perfect specimen type eggs. When you actually own your own chickens, they are quite capable of producing. I mean, that one is particularly weird. I don't know what on earth that's meant to be. I haven't cracked it open to see what's inside, but I can tell you it's very, very heavy. So, there we are. Marty's suggesting it's a Kinder Surprise egg. God, I hate. Well, what I do know for sure is, because I don't have a rooster or a cockerel, as we call them here in the UK. None of the eggs are fertile, so it's not possible to. These won't. Well, that's rubber, so it obviously won't hatch. But my eggs won't hatch. They can't hatch. They're not fertile, so it definitely won't be a chick or anything. But I mean, what on earth is that supposed to be? I just thought you might like to see that, actually. Just remember to take that down. Yeah, I will actually crack it open, I think, at some point. Not tonight, but I will crack it open and see what's actually inside, because I'm just very curious what on earth that's meant to be. Anyway, right, shall we switch over boards? So we had, this was the let's just disconnect. This was from Olimex, not sponsored. This was the FabGL ESP32 FabGL board, which we were just having a look at. However, the other day, and again, because it's Christmas, talking about Christmas lights, and just feel like buying things for me. I don't know what it is, but here is another identical looking box from Olimex. And this one, I think it gives it away on the label. Oops. I have actually bought one of these Aegon Light Z80 8-bit computers. You may have seen these being spoken about an awful lot. Yeah, again, people have sort of said this is another rival, along with what did we say it was? RC 2014 or whatever it was. A lot of people commenting, oh, this is also a rival to Tiny Basic computers. And again, for the same reasons, this is a product that you can actually buy. Mine is not a product you can buy. So this, again, I bought one of these out of curiosity just to see what they're like. And when developing your own platform and system, it's always good to look at what, I suppose you could say, the competition. I don't really know. I don't really class myself as in competition, though. But I bought this to see, what it was like. And you can compare it in size, a little bit bigger, but kind of the same size. So I'm just looking at what Martin... So I'm getting distracted. I'm just looking at what Martin's saying to me. So on the FabGL, there isn't a link to cut like the... Yeah, that's correct. There's not a link to cut like the Pico VGA. No, it should just work. I've downloaded the Olimex build of the firmware. I can only assume it's not assigning to the right pins, or this isn't on properly, or something's not right. Very, very frustrating. So this one doesn't seem to work properly, which is annoying. No, it's no modification or no cutting of pins or anything that I'm aware of. This one, also, this is the Argon Light, also didn't like its SD card until I had to do a complete reformat, which is kind of why I went back to looking at this one, because I'd given up. And then knowing how temperamental this was with its SD card, I thought, maybe this one has got the same issue. So, similar kind of setup, slightly different layout. Again, VGA. What's interesting about the Argon Light is it has an actual, let's see if I can bring it up so you can see. It actually has a EZ, this is actually a Zilog part, Z or Z80 8-bit CPU. And there we go. Just try to get the focus on that. There we are. It also has ESP32 chip, which is their Expressive Systems ESP. It's just a logic chip, and that drives the video. That chip actually has the FabGL library. It uses a variant of FabGL, which we've just been using on the other board. There we go, get it in frame. And it actually uses that for the video drive. It also does the I/O controller from it. This board has, again, microSD, which is now working, and it has sound USB. It has USB 1, which is USB-C for power, and then it has a USB-A, which you can see here. But that's not USB, that's actually wired straight as PS2. So you do need to have a PS2 compatible keyboard. Again, my little keyboard here, let's just focus back again. Okay, my keyboard does work fine. But what you do need, if you're going to use like a proper PS2 keyboard, I've got these, which is you can plug in USB. Basically, it's the reverse of that adapter. So you can actually then break out into a full PS2 socket if you needed to. We won't need to for this. So Marty's actually just asked me why would you reach the SD card? I'm assuming you mean why would you need the SD card for this board? So with the emulator we were just running, this is back to the ESP32, the VIC-20, basically you can install additional program software on it and run additional software. For the IBM x86 PC emulator, you do need the card because it installs Windows, MS-DOS, and all your programs are used on the C drive, and it actually runs a bit like a Raspberry Pi at that point, and it uses it as a C drive to load off the flash card. If it can't see the SD card, it just doesn't work. It just says I can't see the SD card, and it just stalls. So it really, to run the PC stuff, which is why I bought this, to run x86 PC stuff, original 1981 PC stuff, the 8086, you need the SD card. So it's extremely frustrating that it doesn't work. Anyway, back to Argon Light. So the SD card on this, I have the Z80 build of BBC Basic. BBC Basic as in BBC Basic that's on the BBC Micro, Acorn Electron, Acorn Archimedes, Acorn USB-C, RISC-OS Direct, for those of you that remember my involvement with that originally, on the Raspberry Pi, RISC-OS on the Pi. It's the same BBC Basic. This is a port for the Z80, which this uses as a sort of de facto standard. It's not the only OS or only programming language it can use, but this is the one that I've set it up with. So it should be able to boot up as BBC Basic. Now, it's not BBC Micro compatible, and the reason for that is that unless the program is written entirely in BBC Basic, if it uses assembly language, the BBC Micro is either, well, the BBC Micro is 6502, the Archimedes and later SPCs are ARM 1, ARM 2. basically, if you're trying to do assembly instruction set, you can't because it won't be compatible. You need to be Z80 instruction set, which none of the Acorn software is ever written for. So you can't run most BBC Micro stuff unless it's been converted or written in BASIC. It won't run properly. Bearing in mind, I forget the clock speed of this. It's like 50 megahertz or something. The BBC Micro ran at 2 megahertz, and the Electron ran at 1 megahertz. So it's not fully compatible. But let's grab ourselves a USB-C lead so we can power up. Okay, so keyboard's in, SD card is in. We've got another little buzzer. It does its own sound if you want it. This one, by the way, instead of having things you have to break, it actually has little jumpers that you can actually use to break connections like the SD card or like the link. The actual, I think it's RS-232 it uses to link between the Z80 and the ESP32, which I think shares the same block of RAM. This is the RAM chip. And I think the two share the RAM. That's how it's able to communicate. If not passing direct protocols, I think it actually just packets into RAM registries, which then the Z80 picks up. So let's, I think that's how it works. Anyway, right, let's plug in then and power up. And let's see if you can see anything. There we go. So it uses an MOS, machine operating system. It has something called a VDP. Don't ask me what that is. And then we got BBC Basic version 3.0 from RT Russell, so 1987 build. The Basic runs as a ROM from the SD card. Hence, you really do need the SD card for this to work. One thing I will just bust a myth on, if you type something in, I did hear one review, because I've been watching a few YouTube reviews on this. Someone said, oh, there's no backspace. But absolutely 100% is a backspace, which does actually work fine. So this loads straight into BBC Basic. A lot of the BBC Basic calls, like what we call star command, star help, works, star cat for cataloguing, excuse the dog. Works, fires that actually gives you the it's the same as doing dir. In fact, star dir sort of does the same thing as well. So the actual star commands work. What's interesting is because we're in basic, oh, by the way, you have to have caps lock on because BBC Basic is case sensitive, so it only works in uppercase. But you can actually, it is basic, it does work, including, interestingly, the screen mode. So if I go mode 2, so that's mode 2. It's not quite the same as the BBC Micro, but it is all there. And if I go colour 1, colour 2, colour 3, colour 4, colour 5, 6, 7, 8. When we start going into the different colours that you don't get on the 9, 10. But we do have some colour compatibility with the BBC Micro. The BBC Micro only had 8 colours. It boasted itself as a 16 colour machine, but that was actually a lie. It wasn't. It only had 8 colours and it had 8 flashing, and it said, oh, 16 colours, but it doesn't. On the Raspberry Pi with RISC OS, if you run it on the Raspberry Pi and you try this, all the modes are locked to 256 colour mode, which the colour addressing is different, so you always get very strange, muddy looking colours. On this, it doesn't seem to be too bad. It does seem to work. And if I'm in green and I go, oops, colour, and I go 128 plus 1, all the background colours also work. Background colours start at 128. So I go colour 128, 128 being black, colour, okay, 128 plus. Let's see now. 0 is black. So where's white? White should be 128 plus, because color 7 is sort of an off grey. You go CLS, and then you can clear the screen. So that works pretty much as I'd expect it to, which is quite cool. Let's just go back to, is it C dot color dot 128? The shortcut, yes, the shortcuts work as well. CLS, there we are. And if you're in a graphics mode, the draw command does work actually, but it doesn't quite work how it does on the BBC Micro. So if I go, draw 100, 100, you'll get a line on screen, but it draws from the top. Now on the BBC Micro, it always sets itself to 0, 0, first of all. So if I go move 0, 0, that will set it to the bottom left-hand corner. So now if I go draw 100, 100, yeah, that's what I would expect. And then we could say, so we're at 100, 100, we could say draw 400, 100, yeah. So you get the idea. That's how you could draw lines. And can we do Gcol? Graphics color 0, 1, and if we draw again, where are we? We're at 400, 100, so we could say 400, 200. Yeah, there we are. So Gcol is basically graphics color. Color just changes the text color. Gcol in BBC Basic is the graphics color, and yeah, so we can change the color of the line, so that works fine. Also, what's interesting is that VDU statements work. So if I go VDU, I think it's 4, 5. If I go VDU 5, you'll notice that my cursor is now down where I've basically positioned it. So if I now type, I'm actually now typing in graphics mode. And if we go move 300, 300, it will actually move my cursor, because my cursor is now a graphics cursor, not a text cursor. That was something kind of slightly unique with the BBC Micro. It's kind of, it's how I learned, basically I learned 8-bit computing with the BBC Micro, so I'm very at home with this kind of stuff. Which is why it is kind of cool to have I suppose, a modern computer that runs and seems to relatively support most of the BBC Basic stuff. So it might be possible to port over some of my projects, or even look at starting some new projects actually on this platform. Just, you know, with Basic, because it supports BBC Basic, which is quite a feature-rich Basic. Let's just clear screen. Let's put this back into VDU4, which puts us back into text mode. By the way, mode 7 doesn't really seem to do anything. There's no teletext mode. Mode 0 does do the high resolution mode. See, oops, come on. High resolution mode, yes, there we go. So mode 0 is the high resolution mode. Oops, let's try that again. Mode 28 with 6.5. Yeah. So it's not quite the same as the BBC Micro. Move 0, 0. Should still have a draw command. Draw 100, 100. And yeah, you can just see the difference in screen resolution. So the BBC Micro did something similar. It wasn't quite as large as this, pixel-wise. I don't think, does this go any larger than 640? I think this is 640 by 480. Don't think we go any more than that. I'm trying to think, trying to remember my modes. Mode 8. That's a little bit mode. So 1 used to be the 4-color mode. So that's mode, should be mode 1. There we go. So let's just C.1, C.2, C3, C4. Yeah, so I think that all set to possibly a 16 or maybe a 256 colour mode. That's just something to bear in mind, that they don't emulate fully the BBC Micro colour as such. But this isn't trying to be an emulator of the BBC Micro. It's just running BBC Basic on a new set of hardware that's capable of doing a little bit more than the original BBC. If I go VDU, I can't remember what it was now. Was it 6? No, 4, 5 VDU. I want to say 6. It wasn't 6. No. VDU 7. Yes, there we are. I don't know if you heard that. Again, I got one of these little sticker tabs. Little sticker tabs. If I just peel that off, you'll probably hear much better. There we go. Right. That's the same as calling bell or beep, which doesn't work on BBC Basic. Also print, so you can't, I don't think you can't do $A. Or can you? That's interesting. You can't on the BBC Basics that I'm more used to. If we assign A, let's just say A equals 1. $A. No. Interesting that, how it said no such variable. So we declare a variable, and let's just go back into a colour that we can actually see what we're doing a minute. There we are. Interesting. So if I go print A, that works as expected, and I can go P.A for short, that works, but I can't go ? No. So that's a difference over the tiny basics, Commodore Basic, Microsoft Basic, because Commodore Basic is a derivative of Microsoft Basic. So if you're used to programming in those kind of basic environments, then yeah, the shorthand stuff like ? Which we have been using on our own Project Rio Tiny Basic, doesn't work in this environment, but never did on the BBC Micro. So I'm just wondering if we do a very quick test to see how fast we're actually running. So, CLS, new, just clear the screen, list, make sure we're clear, we are clear. 10 A equals, actually, do you know what, I like to go X equals 0. 20 X will equal X plus 1. 30 will be print X. 40 and we'll go to X. Don't need an end statement on that because we never get to an end. So that should work. If I go run, no such line. Oh, hang on. Get it right, can't go to X. 40, go to 20, not X, right. Okay, that should work. So that gives you an idea of how fast the machine can run at, and you hit escape. I mean, we nearly got to 10,000, so we asked it to run again. It resets the value of X. It's just adding 1 to X each time. Lists. We don't have an editor in the traditional sense. So to edit in this environment is basically you have to retype the line. So if I go 30, interesting how it's gone to print X after I put the shorthand in. So if I go again P dot X colon, yeah, there we go. And again, that's the sort of thing I would expect a BBC Micro to do, but just a little bit slower. So basically, if we left it doing that, it would get to a point, it would just make such a big number, it would just fill memory. It wouldn't be able to hold memory anymore. So if we just print what X is, it'll tell us what the number it got to. So 33422 was the sort of maximum number it got to. And again, we can list. Actually, if I put us into a low resolution mode, so mode 2, which is the low resolution mode, let me just run that again. I've got to be honest with you, that looks a little more like mode 1. I don't know if it actually does a true mode 2. Possibly it's too low a resolution for the monitor to handle. Because I can tell you that's not a true mode 2. But it's good there are some sort of graphics or screen modes that we can use or play with. Brian in chat, a bit of a homely BBC Basic. I know, yeah, I do enjoy BBC Basic. I mean, I'm not a good programmer, you probably know that. I do just enjoy a little bit of, you can sort of make some stuff happen very quickly. Just make something up on the top of your head, type it in, and it does something. And yeah, the most success I've ever had has been with BBC Basic, actually. So if we just... let's try doing like a line program. So let's think about this. So 10. Let's have a think. So we've got x equals 0, y equals 0. So the x and y 0, 0. No, actually, do that again. X is going to equal random up to 1000, and Y is going to equal random to 1000. Okay, so we've got X and Y coordinates that are going to be called each time. That should work. Okay. 20 graphics color, gcol 0, and we'll call another random to how far the color's going to go on this. Let's say 16. Won't go any further. So random 16. I've got this right. 30 should be draw x, y, and 40 should go back to 10. Okay. Just a quick question from Gartman there. Does it need the line numbers? Yes, for BBC Basic, yes it does. Because if I don't put the line numbers in, if I just go print, oops, keyboard the wrong way around. If I go print high without a line, line number, it just executes. It just executes immediately. So if you don't put the line numbers in, it doesn't know it's a program. So it does absolutely need the line numbers in to work. So if I run, yeah, there we go. That's what I was expecting to happen. So that gives you the idea of the speed of the machine. It's not the fastest. So even the 700 megahertz, the original, if you run RISC OS on the original Raspberry Pi, that's the original 700 megahertz Raspberry Pi 1, or now the Raspberry Pi 0, it'll go so fast that you'll literally, you wouldn't see the lines. You know, you can physically see the lines there. This is running a little bit slower. But oh, by the way, Project Rio does this as well. You can. It's a slightly different program, but Project Rio or Tiny Basic Color, Tiny Basic 4 Color, I should say. If you're running through the Pi GFX terminal, you can write a program that does a similar thing. Not quite as efficiently as it does in BBC Basic, but I can do this sort of thing on our system. But yeah, so that works as expected, and that's quicker. That's, I want to say, up there with the sort of Archimedes in speed, possibly a little bit slower, but that's it's not bad. Not bad going at all. So we can hit escape. That breaks the program that we were looping. And yeah, it pretty much behaves as you'd expect BBC Basic on a BBC Micro 2. The advantage of this, it does also have a sprite engine, which the BBC Micro didn't have. RISC-OS did, but it was, the implementation was a bit awkward. Looking at the documentation for the Argon Lite, the implementation for BBC Basic with the sprite engine does seem to work a little bit better. So that's something I want to kind of explore. And I'm not against the idea about doing some software and hardware projects for this platform. I noticed the other day, I actually joined a Facebook group for it, and someone has done a port of, there's already a port of CPM, by the way, which I don't think I've ever loaded. If it is on here, so it's just, I don't know CPM, by the way. I know it's just like DOS, but let's just have a think a minute. Star by exit basic. So with exit basic, we now get the star command. Star CLS should clear the screen, but we're not in basic. We're in the operating system layer. BBC Micros, the original BBC Micro wouldn't do this. The BBC Master and the Archimedes would. You could break out of basic and just run in the OS. If I go CPM, no. C/PM. I can't remember how to do it. CP/M. Why is it CP? No. Let's just do a dir. Or did I put it? I'm sure I did put it on here. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't put it on here. Interestingly, you can see there, it's cut off a little bit, but you can see the BBC Basic.bin as well as the auto-exec.txt file. So this is basically the content. There's CPM, it is there. Argon CPM2. Oh, it's in a folder, that's why. Oh, do you open folders on this? I can't remember. It's not CD, is it? Is it CD? I don't think this is right. I don't think it is, and also it's case sensitive. So Argon CPM2.2. This ain't gonna work. Nope. I can't remember how to do this. If I had any idea of what I'm talking about or doing, yeah, it could actually load CPM. The point I was trying to make is, where I got distracted, someone has done a port of Physix, which I have played for, or played with rather, on the Pico, Raspberry Pi Pico microcontroller build, because Physix is quite a lightweight Unix-esque operating system, and someone has done a port of Physix for the Argon. So there's quite a few projects for the Argon happening at the moment. And if I had time, which I don't have, but if I had time, then doing a project myself, especially a BBC Basic project for the Argon, might be quite interesting. So it's early days, but yeah, I'm relatively impressed. I mean, this is kind of looking at the enemy, because it's like, what about my system? Well, there's no guarantee my system would ever actually make it into a physical purchasable product, for all the reasons I've told you multiple times over. But the difference is that this comes as a pre-built machine, whereas what we do with Project Rio, Tony Basic Computers, is we build something. You gather bits together, you build a physical machine. My machine is not going to be as capable as this. I mean, this is a very, very capable machine. Very clever how it works as well. So, you know, I'll completely put my hands up and say not going to be as brilliant, but it's a different kind of mindset what we're doing. We're learning how to build a computer as opposed to having a sort of modern machine or retro modern machine to actually write code on. You can get some very nice 3D print cases for these, so I'm going to 3D print a case for mine. You've also got, I'll show you on the front here, you've got GPIO, another I/O out, also backup battery capability. So it wouldn't be too difficult to possibly do. I know some people have done a joystick adapter for the Atari joystick. Now we've already done joysticks for Project Rio. It's not too difficult to wire in something and then just read the values in BASIC to have like a little driver. So we could get some joystick control on this. There are games that have started appearing for the Argon Light as well. So it's stuff I want to have a look at. And there are now alternative operating systems showing up. So yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I'd certainly be interested to look at porting a few of my early BBC projects over to it, just to see how well it performs. And if it is, I'm guessing it's going to be about 95% BBC Basic compatible. It might, I'm trying to think, does mine do any weird calls that would... It depends if you can do user-defined characters or not. Because if you can't do user-defined text characters, because there wasn't a sprite engine, mine worked by creating pseudo-sprites by mapping text characters and putting it into that graphics mode I showed you. So I'm trying to think if I've got any source code to try that with. Again, not offhand, unfortunately. But if we go back, can we get back into basic? Basic. No. BBC basic. No. Again, I really need to read the manual on this. Reset. No. Luckily, there's a button. Just press a button there and it just resets. And because the way I configured it, we go straight back into basic. There is a way of launching back in again. Yeah, but the point I was trying to make is that what I do is if you don't have a sprite engine, which I didn't, you'd call VDU, put the caps lock back on, VDU 5, you put it in text or graphics mode, you then move, so we're up here, so we move to 100, so we just move to a point on the screen, and then we'd print a character, so we'd say like print like CRH $10. I don't know what 10 was. But also we've now gone off the screen, so we have to then move back to move to 500, and then we sort of move back again. So you get the gist of how that works. But basically, you could assign a custom character or have like multiple characters that you could cluster together to create objects and shapes, and then using this sort of move plot type code, you could actually then plot your character on the screen, and that's how you do sprites on a computer system that didn't support sprites. Obviously, when we got into the likes of RISC-OS, and now with this system, there is some additional sprite capability, but that's non-standard. So if you're trying to write something with some legacy support for the original Acorn 8-bits, there's certain things you won't be able to do, or that you can do in this because it runs a lot faster. So you could write quite sloppy, inefficient code that wouldn't work on the original 8-bit machine because you'd run out of memory. Because you've only got, I say 32K on the stock BBC Micro or the Electron, but actually that's a lie, because by the time the OS has jumped in, and if you select a screen mode, like mode 2 uses 20K. So realistically, by the time you've loaded in your basic, your machine operating system, and you've basically eaten most of the RAM with graphics modes, you've got about 8K left to execute basic in. With this, I think it's like 512k or something on this. It's something like that. So it's a lot more memory, so you can write more larger sloppy, inefficient programs. You can also chain. I think chain does work. Can you chain on this? Hang on. Chain. There's not much. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so does backspace not work then? Let's just move back again. Move 100. Move 400. Okay. Okay, all right. So backspace doesn't work if you're in VDU5. I'm pretty sure backspace does work. Or does it work? And it's just about it can't wipe what you've just. Oh, it might work. So if I go C and then go no and go print, it just wipes over the top. So it does work. Print A, yeah. Okay, so basically it can't wipe the character out in graphics plotting mode, but backspace does actually work. It just doesn't appear as if it works, if that makes sense. So I just want to see if chain works. So if I go chain quote, there's no file, so this won't work, but test.bas. Nope. There we go. Okay, yeah, it does work. So it would be possible to, again, like what we did with Tiny Basic, where you could actually chain multiple files off the SD card. You could chain multiple files. That's how I actually did Nanogangs, my 8-bit basic game. That worked pretty much the same way. Because you only had about 8K available, so you had to like shuffle in code, shuffle it out, shuffle it back in. Obviously with this, with the RAM available and the SD cards, you could just write really big bloaty programs and it would probably be alright. So you don't need to be as efficient. Saying that, it's not going to quite give you the luxuries that you would on, let's say, a Raspberry Pi with RISC OS running BBC Basic 5. That's obviously going to have a lot more power and RAM. But it's a good compromise, and we are running as a genuine 8-bit computer system. Admittedly, the video side is a considerably more powerful 32-bit terminal for the video, so the graphics chip, the ESP32 alone, is more powerful than the Z80. But that's the irony. We've got the same problem with, it's not really a problem, but the same issue, if you like, with our Tiny Basic computers, in as much as obviously we're running an 8-bit AVR chip on those, Arduino, and the other side is either a Raspberry Pi or some much faster ESP32 microcontroller. So this one bit of the system could be more powerful than the main processor, but that's just how it is when building sort of modern computer systems. Yes, and as Gartman has just said in the chat there, plenty of stuff on you. Yeah, I was looking on YouTube. What, you mean you watch videos that aren't mine? How dare you? You watch other people's stuff. Oh, I see. Okay. No, you are quite right. This is quite a lot of very good stuff, actually. Well, some stuff is a little confused. Like, I mean, this is impromptu. This isn't planned. I mean, if I was going to do this as a proper video, I would actually research a little bit more about what I'm talking about. This is a little bit of me looking at stuff quickly, guesswork, and my kind of like obvious previous knowledge of BBC Basic as a whole. So that's kind of what I'm going off. Let's just go back to VDU4. That puts us back up there in text mode. So in VDU mode, VDU4, if I backspace, it actually does properly wipe stuff. So, but yeah, there's plenty of stuff. The one thing that put me off Aegon Light originally was I didn't like the original creator's sort of publicity for it. Basically, his whole online campaign for how wonderful his product was to attack and slag off Commander X16, Dave Murray, the 8-bit guy. Now, as you probably know, I've called a bit towards the 8-bit guy for various reasons. Not as I used to like his stuff originally, but I'm not as big a fan now. And my feelings on the Commander X16 was, although it started as a very interesting project, it suffered from what's the word, bloatware and mission creep and all sorts of things. It became quite a over the top, slightly over engineered and rather expensive system, so I kind of lost interest in the end. But saying that, I wouldn't sort of, if I had something that I thought was better, I wouldn't, as my marketing campaign, just basically spend every video slagging off the other competitors, if you know what I mean. And that's kind of put my back up a little bit, because I thought, well, what's to stop this chap, slagging off what we're doing with Tiny Basic Computers and Project Rio. So I was a bit like, I'm not, so it really put me off it for a while. And I just thought, well, I'm not going to get involved because we're doing Project Rio, which is my 8-bit computer. So I'm not going to, buy the competitors or use my channel as a showcase to showcase competitors' products. It kind of was the original thought process. But as time has ticked on and things have developed, and I've just decided, you know what, people have tried to, originally, people compared Tiny Basic Computers or Project Rio to Commander X16 and this Aegon Light system. And they were like, oh, which one's the best? I was sort of thinking, well, I'm not competing. As I said, at the moment, we're not a product. We're just a sort of we're just a project, a build along project. So, and yes, because I'm using Tiny Basic, we have some severe limitations on our platform that these don't have. Things might get better in the future, and I'm still working on it, but it has been jolly good fun to work on Project Rio, and I still intend to develop it. But I just thought, you know what, because this basically is running a real 8-bit chip, and it's running or capable of running BBC Basic, which I know BBC Basic far better than I do, let's say, the Commodore derivatives that the Commander X16 is using. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to buy one. I'm going to buy one, considering I was sort of playing around with this, and I want to get that working. But I thought, I'm going to buy one, and we'll have a look at it on the channel. Because, even though you could argue it's a competitor to me, there's nothing. I mean, Microsoft developed products for the Macintosh, and you could argue the Macintosh was a rival to Windows. I mean, Microsoft developed OS2 originally, which was meant to kind of replace DOS and Windows. So there's nothing wrong in looking at other people's systems and even developing some projects for other people's systems, even if they're off the back of the stuff you're doing yourself. So that's kind of where I'm at with it at the moment. So again, not sponsored, haven't been asked to look at this. I have had to sort of buy this myself. And I just thought, yeah, it's a curiosity. And if, some of my basic projects, because I could basically port software and write software for this quite easily. I can share those software programs with you, especially those you do on Patreon, as I do with a lot of the other sort of download stuff we do. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and it is part of a small community that has gathered some pace. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And again, as Gartman has just said, it's about the journey more than a destination. Absolutely, yeah. And I think with what we're doing with the Project Rio build, yeah, I mean, I've got plans for that. It's just my time is the problem. My time, or the complete lack of it, is the problem at the moment. But I do need to actually build, and that's the wrong mouse. I hate having multiple mice on the desk because that's not the right mouse. That's the right mouse. There we are. I do need to build a new prototype actually, and I do want to check out some new AVR. Well, they're not new, but they're new to me AVR chips. and I am in talks with a third party about doing a project derivative from Tiny Basic computers. So plenty more going on with that. Also, I want to look at porting my basic. Well, I say my basic, the Tiny Basic that we started, and I've sort of built on to the Carputer. Do you remember that? That's video, by the way, for the original review of that. Again, that's ESP32 driven. The Carputer system, M5 Carputer. Again, not sponsored. I bought that myself. I want to see if Project Rio, well, maybe not so much Project Rio, but Tiny Basic 4-color would probably port over to that, actually. Because we do have an ESP32 version that does run. So, pop that back on there. There we go. So, yeah, lots to do. Lots of little bits of hardware floating around. That I haven't quite got around to doing anything with at the moment. Actually, just remind me, I'm not sure if I'm going to get any Christmas video content done this year, hence why we're here doing these live streams. Again, I'm busy, I'm rather tired. I've got to do something for the second channel, and also people don't generally watch the Christmas stuff, really. It never does very well, so it's almost like, is it really worth my time doing? I mean, I do have some stuff we could do, but maybe I'll change my mind. But yeah, not sure about that really. And also I'm kind of thinking that we kind of need to use these live sessions just to do some project work. I do kind of hate doing it live because if I mess up, there's nowhere to hide. You've seen it all. It's always like, pretend you didn't see that bit. But on the other hand, it's quite good fun just to sort of get on with some bits and bobs and have some company in the chat. One thing we are talking about, and again, I'm glad Brian, I hope you're still on the I say on the call. I hope you're still in the chat. I know Brian and there's someone else whose name I forget who both run BBS bulletin boards, a bit like online teletext CVAX type systems. We did a BBS special. You might remember the Night Owl BBS special we did a while ago. Hoping we're going to do a slightly expanded BBS special again with multiple BBSs that you can call during the live stream. So probably plan for the new year now, but we're going to hopefully, and I don't want to tie down a date or time for it, but maybe January, possibly February, something like that. I'm hoping we're going to do another BBS special 8 till 8 edition. So I'll keep you posted with that. And I guess, Brian, I know we've been talking on email. I guess I'll follow up with you at some point about plans of what we want to do with that. Yeah, so quite a bit coming up at some point. At some point, we'll get back to some of the project work. The main one being C64. It's sitting over here, actually. There we are. Still in its box. The very, very broken C64. The one, the power supply or the USB, micro USB failed in. So, and we built that USB sort of adapter thing to make it run through by powering through one of the ports. So we are, I know we talked when I was at Cambridge, I talked to a few of you that actually did come down about what we might actually do to try and fix that. And the consensus is if the board is still running, I mean, I'd like to flip the board so it's the other way around because it's mounted upside down, which is stupid. I'm thinking about fitting USB-C power supply to it. So that's one project I definitely do want to do. I know you're waiting for me to do a follow-up video looking at the Atari ST BPI system. We demonstrated that live and it just about worked. It behaved itself eventually. We looked at that last week, so I will do a follow-up video with that. I want to do a Trains on 2 video for Wi-Fi Sheep Channel 2 because I've got Model Railway project in the attic, which I do want to get back to. So plenty going on and plenty I'd like to try and get done, as well as having a Christmas myself, seeing some family and trying to have a little bit of a rest before I go back to work on my new contract starting on the 6th of January. So yeah, quite a lot going on, but I'm sure, as again, got morning said right there, busy with family and Xmas, so not managed to get around to the, yeah, I know. When I say family, I mean I don't have any children or anything, but it's obviously it's my parents, my brothers, I should say, and obviously I've got my fiance here as well. So unless you count the dog's not really offspring, no. Dog child is the best we've managed at the moment. But anyway. Right, I think we've been on for nearly 2 hours. So I think I'm probably going to call it a night there tonight, if that's okay with you. Just a reminder, and I haven't actually checked to see if they're actually online. So this might be slightly awkward if they haven't. They should be online. But if they're not, then my apologies. But hopefully, if you want to carry on with another live stream that might still be on air at the moment, then do go and head over to our friends and colleagues at the Coco Nation podcast. They are probably live now over on youtube.com/@the_Coco_Nation. Again, that's a podcast basically all around the Tandy color computer, the Coco TRS-80 and Dragon 32 and all Motorola 6809 derivative systems. I've been on the show a couple of times myself and I do highly recommend it. We'll just say Andrew D, who's joined us in the chat, have a nice Xmas, Tom. You have a nice Christmas as well, Andrew. And to everyone who is in the chat and who is passively watching or is going to be watching this on repeat, thank you so much for your company this evening. Before we go, I will just once again remind you of the Christmas timings. So a little bit different now. This is the last 8 till late of this year. The next, if you like, live stream from me will be Xmas Eve live. So I hope maybe you'll join me for the last few hours of Christmas Eve on the 24th of December. I should be on from around 22:30. That's 10:30 GMT. We'll do the same thing again a few days later on the 31st of December. So that's again for Wi-Fi Sheep New Year's Eve live. That's a bit of a tradition we do here. We count in the new year, so you can count in the new year with me on December the 31st. And we should be back with normal service resuming with 8 till late. The first edition of 2025, which will be hopefully on the 11th of January, again from 2000 hours or 8 o'clock GMT. The time is just coming up to 5 to 10 in the evening, 5 or 20, 21, 5300 hours GMT. Right here in the UK. So once again, thank you everybody who has joined me, and I hope you'll join me for Christmas Eve live, as I've just said. Until then, thanks so much for your company. If you haven't done already, please do consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you real soon. Have a great night, everybody. A very good night.